Hello everyone. In this video I would like just to show you how to read and write to text files in Java. Very simple example. So what we need to do is basically we want to open a project, NetBeans, and instead of taking the input from the console by using the system.in class, we are going to take the input from a file, from a text file. So we will start with a new project, and let's name the project, for example, um, IO file IO program. Okay, what we would like to do is basically taking input from a file. The input consists of, let's say, two integers, and you would like to find the summation of the two integers, and we put the result on on another file as an output file. So before we do so, I just want to make sure that okay. So what we need to do first is basically I just want to make sure that you still remember how do we take input from the console using the system.in. So let's just declare two variables, integer x and y, and let's have a third variable z where we're going to put the result. Let's now create an object, scanner object for taking inputs. Let's include the package, import the package. Now what we need to do here is taking input for the first integer in x and the same thing for y. So let's just say print to display the output z. Of course we have to compute z first, so we have z equals x plus y. So once we run this, we will have the output area. So I'm gonna here it's the cursor is blinking, waiting for an input for the value of x. So let's just put 5 for the value of x, 8 for the value of y, then it displays the value 13 on the screen. Now we would like to change this by taking the input. I don't want to take the input through this area, I just want to save them in a text file and we read the input from a file. So what we need to do first is basically to create a text file where the input data is going to be stored over there. So I will just go to file and I create a new file where we would like to store the input data. So the file is going to be of extension.txt. It's not going to be a Java class, it's just a txt file. So we can just, when we go, let me just show you again, we go to file and we say new file. I'd like to create a new file. The file is going to be of category others, and in other I'm going to choose an empty file. And what would you like to name your input file? So let's just name it, for example, input.txt. So it's going to be a text file which is an input file, and we say okay. So as you can see, this file input.txt has been stored inside the project, and it's in the same folder where the file IO program.java exists. So both of them are inside this folder. So what we need to do here is basically put the input data. So I'm going to put 5 and 8, and I will save the data. So now I have an input file, input.txt, which contains these two numbers. Now what we need to do, we would like to have this program basically, and this program is supposed to read the data from this file, which is input.txt, and do some processing. So how do we do this? We need to tell the program that we have a file that exists over there. So what we need to do is basically we need, at the beginning of the program, we need to create an object of class file, and we say that that file is basically the input.txt, the one that we take the input from. So we need to use file class which exists, which is a class, a predefined class in Java. So file f, for example, which is f is a reference variable for the file class, and we just say new file, and between double quotation we just put the name of the input file, which is input.txt. So now this means that the file object will have the input.txt file, the one that you would like to read from. Now, as you can see here, we have an error. That means because I haven't included the library. So I just click, I have import the package file, and now there is no error anymore. What we need to do as well is, as you can see here from this, let me just take this so that you can see them all together. So as you can see here, I'm not going to take the input from the console. So I don't want system.in. Instead of system.in, so keep scanner in equal new scanner. I still want to take an input, but it's not from the console. So I'm going to remove system.in, and I will just put the file object inside between the parentheses. So I'll just put f. Now that means the input is going to be taken from f, which is an object of class file that reads the input from the input.txt. Here we have to raise an exception. We will to throw an exception. We will talk about this later on when we talk about exceptions in future topics. So what does that mean? That means now we are going to open a file and we read the input from a file. Now the remaining part, the remaining part of the code, it will never change. It will be exactly the same, because you are still taking an input from the object scanner, which is in, but this time is not going to be taken from the console, from this area. It will be taken from this file. So we'll just keep these as they are. We are going to take an integer from the file, so it's supposed to take the value 5 first. Then we will take another input, so it will take the value of the second value in the file. Actually, whenever we read it, it moves from a value to another. So when you say next int for the first time, it will take the 5. When you apply the method next int for the second time, it will take the second number, and if you have more inputs in the file, they will keep moving along the inputs in the file. So that means the value 5 is going to be taken from the file and saved in X. The value of 8 will be taken from the file and saved in Y. 5 plus 8 will be added and it will be stored in Z, and then it will display the result on the screen. Now you will recognize something whenever we run this. As you can see, we have an error exception, file not found. Input.txt doesn't exist for our program. Basically it exists, so that, as you can see, it's there. However, we need to change the location of this file. We either put the exact location, the exact path for this file, or we just change the location, the default location where it searches for this text file. So what we need to do is basically, I want to take this input.txt, this input file, and let me just show you the folder, which is, this is the netbean folder which we have. We just need to go here, and you will find, if we go to source inside the file program, you will find that we have input.txt is over there. Now I'm not sure whether we can still, by the way, drag it from here and put it. Can we put it here? I'm not sure. Anyway, let's just do this from this folder. So let's go again. This is the folder in which it contains the netbeans. I will go inside source, inside file IO. This file input.txt, I'm gonna cut it and go up until I reach this. So I have to put that input file input.txt outside the source folder, not inside it. It should be outside it so that it can be read automatically. So I will just go here and I paste the file. So now I have input.txt outside the source. So now when we go back to the netbeans, as you can see, the file has been removed from here, but we can still access it we just go to open file, so this is inside the project. This is our project file IO program. So as you can see, it's outside the source. So the thing is that you have to put this input.txt inside the outside the source folder, the src, outside the src. Now if we run the program back again, it should display the value 13. So perfect. So what happened? The program has managed to locate the input.txt file. The program has read the input from the file by taking these two integers and store them into x. It finds the summation of the two numbers, store in z, and then it displays the result on the screen. Now what we need, the last thing in which I would like to show you here is basically how do we display an output on a file. I'd like to put the output in a file, not on this area. I want to put it in another file. So let's do the following. What we need to do is basically to introduce a class which is called the printWriter, which we will use it something similar to scanner, but in the opposite way. The thing is going to be used for displaying, not for taking input. So what we will do is basically the following. Again, we would like to create another file, but another object for an output. So I will just do the following now at the beginning. So I'm going to say file, let's say output equals to new file. Then here you have to put the name of the output file, the file that you want to store the output in. So I will just call it output.txt. Now the same thing, this file is supposed to be stored outside the src folder. However, the output file, whenever we say that this file is going to be used as an output, you never need to create it manually. It will be created automatically once the program identifies that this is an output file. So how the program is going to identify that this is an output file? So we just need to do the following. I need to introduce another class which is called printWriter. PrintWriter is going to be used in the opposite way of scanner for displaying output. So we can just assume that it's something similar to system.out.print, but not for displaying on the console. It's going to be stored on a file. So I'll just say printWriter. Then, for example, I'll just say p or any reference variable, new printWriter. Now, where would you like to store the output? You'd like to store the output in this area, in this reference variable. So I will just use this one. I need to call it output. Yeah. So I just need to take file output and I put it here in parentheses. So what does that mean? That means the following. I have defined an output file, and then I want to use it for output. That means here I'm going to use it for output. This is just a file. I'm defining a file. Here I'm going to use it for printing, for output. Of course, you need to import a package printWriter. Now what we need to do. Okay, so now I have two things. I have a file, I'm using it as an input, and I have another file that I will be using for output. Now here I took the input in from the file which is input.txt. I took another input. I computed the summation of the two. Now I would like to display the output not on the console. I just want to put it in this file which we call it output.txt, which will be accessible through p for output. So what we need to say here, I would like to store the value of z. We will just say p dot, and then we can use a method called write. So as you can see, write method takes a string. So you can use write exactly the same way we use system.out, but here I'm going to use write for displaying something within the file, inside the file. So I will just use this write. And now what would you like to store inside the file? So let's say I'd like to store the message, the result is, and put the value of z. So between double quotation, I'll just say the result equals to, then plus, then z. So here I'm storing a string, Actually, I'm displaying a string, but I'm writing it to the file accessed by P. So that means this message now is supposed to be displayed within the .txt file. One thing that you have to be very careful of is that you have to close the output file whenever you finish writing to it. If you don't do so, you will not have data inside stored inside the file that you would like to use for output. So that means whenever you finish writing all the text in the output file, you're supposed to close it by using p.close. This is a must. This is a must to do for the output. No need to do it for input. For output, you need to do this so that whenever you write all the data inside or all the information inside the file, you need to close it. That means you need to save it, and that's it. If you don't close it, the data will not be saved. So it will just be an empty file. Now let's see what happens. Before I show you what happens when I run. So this is the folder in which we have. As you can see, I have build, I have another folder, a third folder, fourth folder, and I have 3 files. Now see what happens whenever I run the program. As you can see, there's nothing to be displayed because we are not displaying on the screen. However, if we go to the folder, you will find out that there is a 4th file that has been created, which is output.txt. Now here, if we double click on this file, we are supposed to get the message that we wrote here, which is the result equal to z, and z is basically the addition of these two numbers, which is 5 plus 3. So we should get a message, the result is 13. So let's see the file. Yeah, perfect. See, output.txt file has the message, the result equal 30. So this is simply how do you read and write to files in Java. Of course, there are different ways of doing so, but this is one way of reading and writing from a file and writing to a file by using a file object for both of them, and then use a scanner for the input and print writer for the output.